Hello there and welcome. This is Mikhail or Michael speaking. Before I start this video, as always, I want to say thank you all who decided to support me financially, be it through Patreon, PayPal, or Super Thanks. I really appreciate your support, so thank you friends and have a blessed day. Now, today's video I will start with Kupiansk Front line, where continuous Russian offensive had brought more territorial changes. First, let's discuss the situation around village of Tabaivka. The more time go by, the less likely the news of Ukrainian recapture of the village are relevant. According to most of the source, it seems that Russians were not only captured and kept the village itself, but also launched several successful attacks in attempt to capture dominating tactical heights in this area, and as a result of successful storming operations, were able to take control over those territories as you can see on your screen. This, of course, greatly increased the buffer zone around this small village, which will allow Russians to further entrench and fortify the area, as well as the tactical heights in which Russians are currently entrenching themselves also. Of course, there are reports of even more territorial gains here in this area, as you can see here on your screen. If those news are true, however, it would mean that Ukrainian forces in Kotlярivka and Kislivka will find themselves in a semi-encirclement. This will allow Russians to attack Ukrainian formations within those two villages from all possible directions. And the fact that Russians are using this road to advance its heavy armor makes this territorial gain more logical and expected. I'm sure in this area, Russians will continue to advance along the road until they gain full control over this rail line, and perhaps establish a new front line from which they will attack in the direction of Stepova-Novoselivka and Ivanivka. Russian forces were also reported attacking from the recently acquired positions in the general direction of Ukrainian-controlled village of Glushivka, as well as in the direction of Pishchane. And if you look at the picture that I've just recently showed you, you can see that this source claims more territorial gains in the direction of Pishchane. But again, like I said, we need more confirmations. It has been days since Russians started this offensive operation in this area, and ever since then Ukrainians were continuously assaulting and counterattacking in attempt to stop the Russians. But as you can see, we're unable to do so to this day. It is perhaps in relation to this, the commander of 103rd Brigade of the Ukrainian Army that was responsible for this sector, Valery Kurko, was relieved from his duties and replaced by someone else. Of course, the official reasoning is corruption, but I'm sure we can all see through this facade. He was unable to repel Russian attacks here, and because of him, the front line was penetrated, and Russians advanced significantly. This isn't the only place on the front line where Russians also advanced. For example, there were some territorial changes in the direction of Ukrainian-controlled village of Berestove, towards which Russians were continuously attacking ever since they captured the settlement of Krakhmalne. And this is how much territories Russians captured as a result of successful offensive operations. As you can see, although this isn't much, but the dynamic is obvious. Slowly but surely, Russians advance towards Berestove, and if we are to zoom out even further, we can see that Berestove is literally the only town located across this entire area. With its fall, Russians will be able to launch attacks to the flank and rear of the entire Ukrainian army groupings in this area, as well as assist Russian forces advancing in the direction of Pishchane. So with all this information in mind, it is very hard to underestimate this recent Russian breakthrough, and the firing of the commander of 103rd Brigade is a sign that Ukrainians are slowly starting to panic. If nothing is done, the whole front line may crumble due to the continuous and relentless Russian attacks all across this front. From here, let's move to the big city of Gorlovka and discuss the situation here. Oddly enough, Ukrainians launched offensive operation here in this area, and as a result of that, captured this big chunk of territory that remained unchanged ever since this recent attack. Reports on this speculate of the necessity of this recent territorial gains, as generally speaking it will not allow Ukrainians to do anything except for the fact of storming Gorlovka itself. Perhaps this is a diversion attack, so that Russians will be forced to relieve some of their troops from Avdiivka to reinforce Gorlovka, which in theory should decrease the effectiveness and intensity of Russian attacks in the direction of Avdiivka itself. Now, at this point in time, not only do I want to ask you to consider supporting this video by liking, commenting, and of course, if you haven't subscribed, subscribing, but I would also want to know your opinion on this recent territorial development, whether we will witness the storming of Gorlovka, and if we do, when, and how exactly it will turn out for the Ukrainian army. When it comes to the Russian bridgehead within the Avdiivka town, it seems that Ukrainian forces continued to attack all across this salient in attempt to close it off, but were successfully repelled by the Russian forces, and thus were unable to advance. A lot of pro-Ukrainian channels of course speculate that soon this bridgehead will be closed off. However, for some reason they ignore pro-Ukrainian sources. For example, on this pro-Ukrainian map, the situation is such. This was the situation of yesterday, and this is the situation of today. So despite Ukrainian claims of a successful counterattack, pro-Ukrainian sources claim of Russian advances here in this area. Of course, as to who to believe is only up to you to decide. Russians were also able to advance near the settlement of Apitne, to the east of it to be more precise, and as a result of successful offensive operations, were able to capture this portion of the territory from the Ukrainian side, as you can see, consolidating their territories along this highway. As to whether Russians will continue their attack across the open field is unknown, but now they can launch several attacks from the settlement of Apitne along this forest line, which has trenches and strongholds, and by attacking it from the village and across this open field, might successfully take it altogether. So this recent territorial gain is important for the developments in this portion of the front. Then from here, let's move all the way to the Velika Novosilka sector. Yesterday I reported of a successful Russian attack near the settlement of Priutne, to be more clear, to the north of it, which took place in this general area along this forest line. And today I have a video of Russian forces attacking from Priutne through these forest lines and along this road in the direction of Ukrainian positions located on the south part of this water reservoir. As you can see on the video, Russians used a significant force, many tanks and infantry fighting vehicles, and generally speaking, this is part of a much bigger operation that is currently ongoing on this sector of the front. In my last video I said that the territorial gains that happened here were of positional style of warfare, but it would seem Russians launched a massive offensive here in this area in attempt to retake more positions and increase the buffer zone around the village of Priutne. It also seems that the accumulation of forces went unnoticed for the Ukrainian side, as they were seemingly surprised by this massive Russian armored assault. Because as you can see, Russians advanced seemingly unchallenged. Now I will let the rest of the video play out with some music in the background, and let's meet at the end of this clip. So in conclusion, it seems the Russians started offensive operations all across this front, attacking in the general direction of Rivnopol, Novodarivka and Livadne as well, and as you saw on the video, had accumulated enough forces to do so successfully. At this point in time, there are no reports of Ukrainian counterattacks in attempt to stop advancing Russians. I yet again want to know your opinion, not only on the video you just saw, but on the possibility of further Russian developments here in this area. and whether Russians will start offensive operations in order to retake all the territories that were lost all throughout Ukrainian counteroffensive, because the same dynamic can be seen in Robotyne and Bakhmut, because there Russians are slowly retaking lost positions. With this, I end today's video. I hope it was to your liking and informative enough. As always, humanity calls me to condemn all violence against human beings. Have a great day, and always remember, Russia will be free and great.